Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of SAP Security. In this session we will be discussing about custom authorization objects. As a security consultant, often you may come across some requirement whereas existing authorization object delivered by SAP may not be enough. Mostly this comes during custom development or some new program which is been enhanced from the existing SAP program which you copy from an existing SAP program and you will enhance this program. So in these cases that the existing authorizations which is delivered by SAP may not be enough. In these cases you can create additional authorization object to fulfill your requirement based on your business requirement. The names where customer generally use for these objects which start from Y or Z to identify this as a custom object. We can do this using transaction code. We can create these objects using transaction code SU21. So let's say if it is required to create new fields or you want to define the fields, then we can use the transaction code SU20 to define new authorization fields. So what we do is in SU20 we need to create the fields. Let's assume that we need to create a authorization object which is an Z object which has a fields. If it is for example standard field like company codes or activity, then you don't need to do this. Let's say you need to field also need to have an custom field, then we go to SU20 and we create the field. When you create the field, you need to also specify the respective data element, because to map the field we will also see that in the system how do we create a field. Once you create the field, then you go to SU21 to maintain this object. Let's say you create a authorization object, then you include the standard fields or your the fields custom field what you have created in SU20, we can add it into the specific authorization object. So let's see in our system how to create this custom authorization object. So what we will do is in our exercise we are going to create one authorization object Z_ security user 1, okay, which will have the field BUKRS and ACTVT activity, two fields. So this is our first scenario. We want to create an authorization object Z object like this which has two fields. So for this what we will do is first we will go to SU21. This is a create button. Here click authorization object. You have two options actually here. You have authorization object and object class. You can create an authorization object class and you can assign all the authorization object belongs to that specific authorization class to that class. Let's say, as you know, this is a authorization class, so you have so many authorization object under this class. So right now let's say we have different Z authorization class. If we want, we can also create one authorization class first. Okay, let's do this one. Authorization class. We will create one authorization class. Our Z security. Okay, security SAP security training authorization class. Okay. So this is our authorization class. Sorry. Security Okay, we need to specify what package. For right now we just say local object, so we do not need to create a TIA for this. Okay, so we have an authorization class for our training purpose. This is our class which we will be using. Now let's create the object. Authorization object. This is going to be my object name. Then the text, security training object 01 with standard fields. Okay, then we will be using two standard fields. BUKRS, you know what is BUKRS? Means company code. Then we have activity. Okay, now you can also create some kind of documentation for this. Let's say it's always better to create a documentation because it is very easy to refer in the later stage that for what is the reason we use these objects. Okay, let me first is definition. Say this authorization object is only used for training. Fields BUKRS, company used for test, then activity, all activity. This also local object. So I have a document for my object. Then permitted activities. First we need to save this one. Okay, let me save it. Local object. The reason why I am saving it as local object, I don't want to create a TIA. Otherwise you can specify the object and you can transport these changes to quality and productive system. I saved. Permitted activities. The permitted activities means, as you know, that we have quite lot of activities, standard activities, so we need to define what all the activities belongs to these specific authorization objects. So we have, there is nothing called create, we have only change, display, delete, display price, something, yeah, whatever the related activity. We just, for testing, we selected something. Okay, now I save. Okay, so this is done. What we will do is, let's see how does our object class look like. So we have the object class, so we have a one authorization object. So let's try to add this object into one role. POCT. So I will go to set, yes, set underscore security custom authorization object. Create. test rule. Going to change authorization data. Like the template manually assign. So this is my authorization object right here. Now you can see it comes to the authorization class is that security. Then this is the detail of this one. Let's say if I select this and click F1, now you can see the help what we have defined. Yeah, this is a definition. This is an authorization only used for training, or BUK mean company code used for testing, an activity, all activity. So this the help which we created during the creation of this specific authorization object. So now we need to select the activities. Let's click the activity, and when you click the activity you can see the activities which you have defined. So select the activity whatever you want, then the company code. You can see it's already defined as a company code. If you go to Auth levels, then you can see this is the company code. Then you can define the company codes here. Simply put star. Okay, say generate, save. So in this first scenario we have created one object with two fields which is standard field. So the activity also a standard field and BUKR is also a standard field. So what we did is only in the activity we defined what are all the activities actually required for this specific field. So next scenario, let's create one object which will have an custom field. The reason why you may think why we need to have a custom field. First of all, why do we need to have a custom authorization object? As we said, in some situation you may require it. Let's say you have wanted to have a complex checking process, or in a specific document, in a business document, you wanted to have your own authorization checks added, and you wanted to have your own fields which is defined. Again, you can get the values from the data element and you can compare it. Then if you wanted to have this kind of scenario, then we need to create this additional authorization objects. Let's go to our second scenario. Our second scenario is, let's say this is 2. Then AU is that AUTH is that AUTH. So this is our second scenario. We have one standard authorization field, and the second authorization field is that AUTH, one custom field which we are going to create. So if we go to SU21 directly, now we will not able to get this custom field. So we need to create this custom field first. For this we will go to SU20. So first you go to SU20. So we type in /n SU20. So create field. So let's give a name for our field, then the data element. So let's search some data element which is already existing, Z star. I search for Z star because now we don't want to create a data element at this point. So let's take what? Okay, is set access counter. This is one data element. This is linked to this field is set underscore auth. So what, before creating the field, that you will create a data element, again it will be created by an ABAP team. So all the changes right now what we are doing, these are all workbench related changes. Okay, this also, let's say, local object. So here is our field which we already created. Now you go to SU21. Now we created the field, now we need to create the object. Let's create the object. Authorization object. The object, let's say SAP security training object 02 with custom fields. Authorization class is set security. Then our first object is BUKRS, this company code, and let's put our second object is set authorization, that is access counter. So create a documentation. This authorization object is for SAP security training fields UKRS company code, then insert AUTH. We can specify the actual use of this field, but here we don't know. Let's say test authorization field. Okay, this is fine. Then so let me save local object, and save. Okay, now if I go back to my role CG and go to change mode, let's try to add our second object. So this is our second object, whatever we have keyed in, it's here. Then the authorization count is some field value. Yeah, so we can specify some values. The authorization count should be PRI. Then if then you can specify in your program that if this is the condition, then what it should do and what it should not do, things like this. So here what I will do, let me specify 001, so it should be fine. Now if you see, we created two different objects. One has standard authorization field. Our next objects have standard as well as custom field. This is the way we can create custom authorization in SAP systems. So the authorization which start with Z or Y, the custom object or class or field, then these are all called custom authorization object, which is not part of SAP delivery. Generate. So this is quite interesting. Whenever you have a complex scenario that you wanted to create an additional program, the existing authorization objects which is available in SAP does not fulfill your requirement, then you will be doing this additional authorization object always. And one more thing you need to remember, whenever you have a requirement, just simply does not go and start creating an additional authorization object, then you will be creating quite a lot of authorization object, which will not be a good practice for your future maintenance. So always check that do we have an existing authorization object. Let's say if you wanted to see some if you wanted to check some sales document based on company codes, then we have so many authorization object in SD itself that which you can use. So check these objects whether can we use this existing standard authorization object in the custom program. Then we can use the standard objects and we can assign the standard object. If the standard object does not fit for your requirement, or you wanted to have an additional authorization object without disturbing the standard authorization object, wanted to have additional fields. Let's say you have a standard authorization object, you found the standard authorization object which has company code and plant and activity. Let's assume like this. So we have an authorization object which has company code, plant and activity. Your requirement is to check company code, user group, plant and activity. So you didn't find any authorization object like this. So if you want to do like that, then you can create an additional authorization object, which then you can add in a standard fields, company code, user groups and plant and activity. User groups, actually it's not a very good example, but just to explain that I gave an example like this. So if this things of which is not available in SAP, then you can use it like this. And top of it, if you want to create a field which is not exist, like the fields company code, plant, activities, these kind of fields, but you wanted to create your own custom field, then we can create an additional custom field. Okay, with this we are coming to the end of this session. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next session. Bye bye.